but because thou art compassionate, purify me by the compassion of thy mercy.
Hello, all Antiochian men in the Diocese of Miami in the Southeast. This is Michael Bachlig with another interview in our Amen interview series. We have a very special guest with us today. I'm joined by the new CEO of Ancient Faith Ministries, Melinda Johnson. Melinda succeeded John Maddox as CEO at Ancient Faith at the beginning of 2023 and has really hit the ground running in her new role. Melinda, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I'm very glad to be here.
Wonderful. Well, I was hoping that you would just start out by sharing a bit about yourself. Can you tell us where you're from and how you came to work at Ancient Faith Ministries?
I am from all over the place. I've lived on the East Coast and the West Coast, and I've lived in the middle. My husband is a retired Navy chaplain, and it's partly his fault that I have lived in lots of places. And he's also actually an Antiochian priest as well. So I'm a Priya. I can never say it correctly. Priya. I keep
I think
practicing. I love that
that was
word.
pretty good.
I think it's beautiful, and I love to hear it spoken by people who can say it well.
Right.
Um, the how I came to work at Ancient Faith is actually kind of a funny story. I'm a writer, and after I had been Orthodox for a little while, I wanted to get to know my patron saint better, this Lydia, um, the seller of purple. So I decided I would try writing about her as a way to get to know her better. And the whole process was like, it was just very innocent and naive, and it turned out beautifully. So I wrote a book, and I went and Googled, Orthodox publishers, and Ancient Faith came up. So I sent them my book, and a real person actually read the manuscript and responded to me, which in the publishing world, that doesn't ever happen, without an agent or anything. I mean,
Right.
it's like I had a little guardian angel just taking along. And they accepted it. So, because that never happens either. You don't, write a book for the first time, give it to one publisher. The one publisher says that they will, gives you an immediate response and says that they'll publish it. And I got to work with Catherine Hyde, who is still with us, who is a fantastic editor, did so much for me as a writer. And it also was the beginning of my relationship with them. So fast forward a few years, I had been working for another Orthodox organization, and had felt it was time for me to move on. So I was sort of between things. And I was thinking about, back when my book had come out several years prior, how there wasn't really a whole lot of, Orthodox marketing available. There were other marketing agencies, but the publishing world is very segregated between secular and religious. And the religious side of it is mostly owned by evangelical Christians. So I remember I was Googling around. I found that, Christian marketing for books. I thought, oh, good. And I clicked the link and I started reading. Well, it turns out this particular organization, was sponsored by a church that had a special page on their website for how to save the Orthodox, who are very nice people, and it's a pity they're all going to hell.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, well, that's not going to be good for me then, is it? So I was just remembering this as I was between things, and I thought, it would be amazing to be the marketing director for Ancient Faith. So I came up with this whole proposal. It's like, dear John Maddox, and I outlined all the things I could do for him and how great it was going to be. And then I thought, you know what? I've only been out of my other job for like 3 weeks. I need to calm down and just set this aside and just take a little time. I need to chill out. But what I could do, because I don't squelch usually, I thought what I could do is offer to, on a volunteer basis, to run a retreat for them, which ended up being the writing and podcasting conference. So this was the very first iteration. So I volunteered. I sent a note to someone I remembered working with and just said, I have time right now. I know you guys are always busy. Could I, on a volunteer basis, work with you to run this event? And they said, oh, sure. So we started working on it. 2 weeks later, I get a email from John Maddox saying, we've had some restructuring here and we're going to add a marketing director. Would you like to interview for the position? So I had this whole proposal, which I never submitted. I never said anything. I was like, I'm going to wait and see what happens. And what happened was he came to me and offered me the chance to interview for the same job that I had not applied for.
Wow.
So of course I said, yes, I would like to interview. And I did. And that was how I ended up at Ancient Faith.
Wow.
That was 7 years ago.
7 years ago. Well, that's a great story. And you mentioned the Ancient Faith Writing and Podcasting Conference, which has now been, I think, renamed the Content Creator Conference.
Right.
And I actually had the pleasure of attending that last year. And I was there when John Maddox himself announced you as the new CEO. It was such a treat to be able to be in the room,
That
to be
was
one of the
amazing.
first people to hear
Hmm.
about that. And I
Yeah.
actually had the pleasure of interviewing John Maddox a couple years ago for our
Hmm.
Amen YouTube channel, and it was
I
towards the end of his
remember.
tenure as CEO at Ancient Faith Ministries. I was just curious, how has the transition gone for you this year?
Oh, it's been mind blowing. I miss John. We all miss John, but um, he Ancient Faith was such a labor of love for him.
Mm,
He just, he dedicated his whole self, his whole intelligence, all of his effort. And we were really set up to be just fine after he retired. There was no sense of it, oh my gosh, it's falling apart. What are we going to do? Nothing at all. There was so much forethought. And he's actually very kindly made himself available to me if I want to ask, questions or, pick his brain or get some institutional memory. So I have felt very supported and very blessed. And I think that my coworkers would agree that, at some level, nothing has changed, but in another way, everything has changed. And I think the other thing that's been really a hallmark of this year is we have, thank God, a lot of momentum. The
mm.
company is going. You think about when I joined, I was, I think, the 10th employee, and we have 25 now.
Oh, wow.
So in 7 years, that's we're still a tiny little company, or a tiny little ministry, but in our scope and our ecosystem, we've, more than doubled in size. So there are all these things that we're working on now to, bring our infrastructure up to support that growth and the level that we're finding ourselves at. So it's been really exciting.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned earlier that you're a writer, and I know that you're a very accomplished author of many books. I keep seeing your name, Melinda, on the cover of all these books in my local church's bookstore. And it's so great to talk to you because I just keep seeing that name there and it reminds me of you. But
It's
I'm
me.
curious, what has the experience of just being an author been like for you over the years?
Oh, I love it. I've been writing in one way or another since I was born. Well, maybe not then, but as soon as I was as old enough, like I have tiny little childhood memories of storytelling and of
Mm.
trying to write. I remember trying to write a detective story in fifth grade and then realizing that I would have to actually know who had committed the crime in order to write the story, which is a big, epiphany for me. But what I love about, most of my books are for children. I have one or two that aren't, but most of them are for children.
Hmm.
And um, my own childhood was just illuminated with good books and with people who loved me reading stories to me. So I have just, a great love for that and a great value for that sort of inner world of the imagination. I think that it can be such a gift to us. It can be, it can be a hard thing too. But if you have all of these good stories, good memories in your mind, you take that with you in hard times. And it also helps you be inventive in your own life, to think of solutions and to be resilient. So um, most of my books have been published by Ancient Faith, although I also have a number from St. Vlad's. I had one for a while from Paraclete. I think that what I hope is that obviously that the children reading my stories will enjoy them as much as I enjoyed writing them, and also that they'll have the chance to see themselves in the book that they're reading, to see,
Mm.
because in the United States, at least, Orthodox children are not a majority culture group. They're a little group, and they have some friends that are like them, but a lot of what happens in their home and in their church is foreign to the people that they meet at school, et cetera. And I think there's something so joyful about opening a book and thinking, oh, we do that looks just like my parish, or I celebrate that way too. And I hope that the characters are lifelike and that the children have that feeling of being at home in the story.
Yeah, that's really wonderful, Melinda. And I have to say, I grew up in the church, and when I was a child growing up, there were not very many children's books that were
No.
Orthodox in content. And I think what you're doing is so important. You and all the other authors that are contributing to this cause, because now there are so many books in print for
There
children and
are.
adults when it used to be just very slim. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just so needed. And that's something that Ancient Faith is so good at, is putting out good quality content,
Oh, thank you.
especially in the books division. So thank you for that. And Another thing that Ancient Faith Ministries is really well known for is hosting really high quality events for Orthodox Christians. And you mentioned that earlier too. You were involved in that early on with your involvement with Ancient Faith, and particularly at the Antiochian Village. And I've heard that there's an event coming up in early 2024 for Orthodox Christian singles. Can you tell us about this event?
Yes, this events are actually my baby at Ancient Faith. I was the first person to do in-person events, and I just love them. They make me happy. And I love doing them at Antiochian Village. That's a definitely a special place. So this event, the Ancient Faith Orthodox, actually, what do we call it? The Ancient Faith Singles Retreat 30 plus. So a couple of years ago, we have our annual staff retreat, and we sort of brainstorm, what do we need to do next? Who are we not serving? And one of the conversations that came up is that people who are single in the church often feel, we've gotten all kinds of comments over the years, survey responses, people saying, I'm the only one like me in my parish. Everything is for people who are married. Everything is for people who are, have children, or else the things that are for people who aren't married yet are very much targeting, college age kids or younger than that, right? We have things for teens, but then there are things that are available for, quote, young adults. And that'll be, I think the biggest range I've seen is 18 to 35, which is problematic for a number of reasons. People who are 35 are in a very different place in life than people who are 18. But after that, there's just sort of this cliff, you just fall off. There's nothing else there. So we felt that, it was a group that we hadn't specifically reached out to. We didn't have, content that was particularly for them. So we started a Facebook group, actually a couple. I have one that's for single parents, because that is a completely different situation and world. And that group is just precious. They are, it's about, I think it's like 140 people, and they take care of each other, and they advise each other, and they just walk with each other. I just pop in there every now and again to see how they're doing. And they're just special people. It's a privilege to be hosting that group. And then I have my two singles groups, the big one, which is approaching 1,000 people. And then we have one, some of the singles who are over 40 asked to have their own group. It's a little quieter. The big group, though, so we started it. All these people showed up in the group, and it became clear in 5 or 10 minutes that what many of them want, not all of them, but what many of them want is some way to be together in person in a church setting that was designed for them. So that rather than being, the afterthought, or that person we're, including in our family, whatever, that it'd be an event where most of the people there are single, and most of them are in the same, season of life. And that's what's being honored. And that's the hospitality that's being offered. And also, just to be completely frank, a lot of them would like to get married. And so they're looking for, the chance to meet other Orthodox people with that same goal in person. So that was the intention behind the event. And it has been such an adventure. I get up every day and say, oh my goodness, I wonder what's going to happen today.
Yeah.
So it's good though.
Yeah. And what you're talking about, I think there's such a need for it, because as you're well aware, so many Orthodox Christians are spread out across the country, and many of them just feel very isolated, especially if they're a member of a small parish and it's far from any other Orthodox churches. It can feel kind of lonely and just isolating. Can you share what some of the benefits of attending events like this are, other than the obvious goal of getting singles to meet each other?
I think that something that we noticed that was maybe a little unexpected right from the beginning when we started doing events is there is just something holy about being in person with each other. We are an incarnational faith, right? We were made, we have bodies.
Yes.
And there is just something precious about, you put people in a space, and there's just sort of this, I don't know, it just is full of life. It's often more peaceful than online. There's not as much noise, right? And there's something about, I love when you go to Antiochian Village, and I believe this is still true. I haven't been there in a few months. You check in at the front, and they give you an actual key, like a metal key. And I remember the first time I went there and got that key, I thought, this is like the key to the secret garden, right? Like you don't get the hotel keys are all plastic now, right? So and you go and you unlock your door and you drop all your stuff, and you're in just this place that's just away from the world.
Yeah.
Right. And so the rest of your life and all of your chores and responsibilities have a chance to sort of step back, and you can just be, and that you're in a setting that is Orthodox, that's, overtly supportive of your faith life and your values, your reasons for being there, there's a saint buried there. When
Yeah.
people ask me, why do you host an Antiochian village? I say, please show me the Marriott that has a saint buried behind it, and I'd be
Right.
happy to consider that.
That's so
Like
true.
they don't grow on trees. So I think it's a chance for refreshment and peace and just the healing power and the interest, the liveliness of being together with other Orthodox Christians is just special.
Yeah, that's so well said. Melinda, we have multiple in-person events in our diocese every year. We have
Mm-hmm.
a fall retreat, we have a winter retreat. We also have, of course, our Parish Life Conference. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, being in person is so important. And I think sometimes we get a little bit too used to this new virtual world. And I
Mm-hmm.
myself am guilty of that. I mean, I'm here
Mm-hmm.
talking to you right virtually over the internet, and I think there's a place for that. But being in person is real community, and what you're describing,
Exactly.
it's what we all need, right? and
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned the Antiochian Village. I think it's such a great venue to host events like this, and it's just a truly beautiful place with so many unique aspects to it. You mentioned that there's a saint buried there, but there's also some other just amazing things about the property itself and the facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Would you talk about why, from your perspective, the Antiochian Village is the perfect place to host an event like this?
Oh, because they take such good care of us. One of my favorite things about that favorite place of mine is to come in the door and they have a little plaque there that says there is room at the inn.
Mm,
So it's like the opposite of no room at the inn. Jesus has to go be born in a manger. Well, this is an inn where there is room. They have such a spirit of hospitality and love. They work so hard. Um, and there's just a lot of, there's a little museum there. There's an Orthodox bookstore, which in and of itself, like there's just something amazing about walking into a store, right?
yeah,
There's the cash register and everything in the store is Orthodox.
right.
There's usually ancient faith radio is usually playing, it's just it's a little world within a world. And it also, the grounds are beautiful. So if you want to take a break and go outside and walk around, there are trees and grass and a little pond. And there's a prayer walk through the woods that
Mm,
you can go on. The food is amazing. There's a chef who's been there, I want to say something like 35 years, and now his son is working there. So they do beautiful fasting food. It's a little world that just accommodates all of the things that we need. There's a beautiful chapel with icons that hand painted. They're not like they didn't order them and stick them up the squares. They're actually painted on the walls. Um, it's just a lovely place.
yeah, and I can vouch for the food being outstanding. When I was there recently, I can tell you I was blown away by the quality of the food
It
that's there,
is. It's good.
and how beautiful it is. Also, you can visit the grave of Metropolitan Philip of thrice
Yes, you
blessed
can.
memory, from Bishop Antoon, who is the former bishop of our
Hmm.
diocese. Just a wonderful place to have kind of a mini pilgrimage where you don't have
Yes.
to leave this country and still have a wonderful holy experience like you're talking about.
Yes.
You've organized many different kinds of events for Ancient Faith Ministries over the years. What makes the singles retreat different, though, from the other kinds of events you've done? And can you give us maybe like a sneak peek of some of the things that
Hmm.
are planned as a part of this event?
Sure. I would say in some ways, this is the most exclusive event. I mean,
Hmm,
for example, I do a women's retreat. So in a way, yeah, if you're not a woman, you can't come, right?
right.
But women is a very large category.
Yes.
So that's half the world can come. This was specifically for singles and actually specifically for people of a certain age.
Mm,
This is not a young adult event. This is you're at least 30 years old. You're an adult. And it also is unusual because it was sort of a direct response to communication we received. So we set up this group on Facebook and started interacting with them. And this is the need that they presented, right? This is what many of them want to have an event in person. And so rather than it coming from us, really, like I thought of the women's retreat. I thought, oh, that'd be a great idea. And I went out in the world and said, what about a women's retreat? This is the opposite. This is them saying, I wish there was, I wish somebody would do this. I wish there would be an event. Um, it's like something that it has in common with some of our other events is we try to be careful not to overschedule. Um, the very first event I overscheduled and it was amazing. It was fun. And we were so tired at the end of it. We wanted to just, nobody
yeah.
wants to drive home. They need to lie down.
Right.
Um, and this one, especially because fellowship is such a priority, there is definitely a lot of time. And then also rather than that sort of traditional speaker model, we have our quote speakers are actually just session leaders, and they are all planning to be very interactive because
Mm,
the people who are coming want to talk to each other. So
right.
it's going to be like a topic, right? And you have us, the person's going to introduce, here's what we're talking about today. Here's a little bit of background. And then they're going to help the group break into smaller groups and talk to each other, have sort of a guided discussion model, which is a little different than some of our other events, where it's more, traditional, a speaker. And we also are really excited to introduce a community service element.
Mm,
So we just found out that the Orthodox Vision Foundation is sponsoring materials for us to create 500 IOCC hygiene kits. These are the little, it's like a Ziploc bag that has, a toothbrush and washcloth and soap and nail clippers, things for people who have been through a disaster.
right.
The IOCC, International Orthodox Christian Charities, has a big warehouse where they keep these, and when they go on, disaster response, they hand them out to people who have lost everything and need help. They need help, keeping themselves clean. So that's something that we can do. That's, it's not hard to do, and it's something you can talk to people while you're doing. Right, it's a little icebreaker. You can be making your kit while you're getting to know the person next to you. So that's a new thing with this group as well. We're going to have a bonfire, which is causing a lot of excitement in the group. I'm a little worried, but I'm not sure why we're all so happy about setting things on fire, but no, I think it'll be fun. And we're going to bring games. This is definitely a very, overtly, deliberately social
Yeah.
event. And as with anything, all of our events, I always tell people nothing is mandatory.
Yeah.
If you want to drop out, you need to go pray or nap or make a friend, go ahead. And we do have the blessing of being able to do morning and evening services there, and then
Mhm.
having divine liturgy together in that beautiful chapel before we all go home on Sunday. So hopefully a nice combination of, of faith and friendship and who knows.
No, that's great. I was thinking as you were describing this, Melinda, about the early days of COVID and how just overly isolated we all were, and how this
Mm-hmm.
is exactly, especially for the single people out there, exactly
Yes.
what was needed and is still needed coming out of COVID now, where things are opening up or are opened
Mm-hmm.
up in most cases. I mean, I think that there's a real hunger for this kind of thing. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for any singles out there 30 or over to take advantage of. And, in particular, Melinda, we've been seeing a large influx of young adult inquirers to the Orthodox faith in our
Yes.
diocese in recent years. And I'm hearing it's happening all over, not just in the Diocese of
Mm-hmm.
Miami in the Southeast. Many of them are single, and a large percentage of them are young men. And young men to me includes over 30, between 30 and 40. We're seeing quite a few, even in my
Right.
local parish. I was wondering, because we have such a large audience of especially men and younger men on this YouTube
Mm-hmm.
channel, what message would you have for any of the single men out there who are watching this video?
I think based on, I mean, I obviously am not expert on being a man myself, but based on what I've, seen and heard in our singles group, one, if you're on Facebook and you like to be in the group, it's called the Ancient Faith Orthodox Singles Outreach. You just asked to be let in, and I let you in. You're more than welcome there. But I think that would be my message on the event itself to men, is that they are welcome, that they're wanted. I've had all kinds of teasing comments made to me since I launched this event, and one of which was, "Well, I bet no women are going to come. It's just going to be a bunch of guys sitting around talking philosophy," which that actually sounds kind of fun, but no, that's not the case. Lots of women are signing up. But I think that I'm seeing instances where I feel like the men in the group, or maybe single men as a whole, need to hear that they are wanted there, that they're welcome, that their presence will be enjoyed. Hopefully it will be enjoyable for them as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about the event. My email address is mjohnson@ancientfaith.com. I tell people that, mjohnson@ancientfaith.com. If you have a question, I will do my best to get you an answer. But yeah, to come and make friends, come and enjoy the bonfire. Maybe come and meet someone. One of the things, actually, since you mentioned that was brought up in the group that I think is important is we had a conversation about what makes events like this hard. Other events that people have been at. And one thing that came up several times is their frustration and stress with the sense that you were supposed to go to a singles event and pretend that you're not there looking. just pretend that everything you're just, just being cool or whatever it is that you'd be doing at a singles event. And we're trying to be real and to be honest with each other, to respect that there are some people who are just looking to make friends and find community, and there's some people who are genuinely looking for someone to build a life with. And either of those is a completely valid reason for being there and an honorable reason. And there isn't any reason to pretend that that's not what it's about. So I think that would be the other thing I would say, is that we're trying to be honest and honorable, and we respect that in our guests as well.
No, that's really wonderful. I'm glad you shared that. And I hope everyone watching this video takes that to heart and really considers going to this wonderful event. And I'm sure there are many who are watching this video who would like to know how they can register for the singles retreat. Where and how can they register for this event?
So we always run our registration through the Ancient Faith store, because that makes it easy for us. So if you go to the Ancient Faith store, the URL you need is store.ancientfaith.com/singles. So there's also a big banner up on the homepage. If you go in there, it will be there. You can just click the banner, but it's in our store, and it's store.ancientfaith.com/singles. And that's got a list of, all the information, the dates. It's February 29th, leap year, February 29th to March 3rd at Antiochian Village. And that will show, it'll show you all the travel information and who the session leaders are, and all your different, single, double, triple rooms and meal plans and all of that. All that information is there. And like I said, I'm more than happy to answer questions if anybody has any.
That's great. Well, what we'll do, Melinda, if you wouldn't mind sharing the links with us for those Facebook groups, we can put that in the description of this video.
Great.
And we will also put the link to the actual Ancient Faith store registration page in the description of this video as well, to make it easy for everyone who's watching right now. So we'll go ahead and do that. So please make sure you check that out. Please visit the link and check out the details, and register and attend if you are able to, if you think you would benefit from it. And Melinda, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and we at the Antiochian Men wish you and everyone at Ancient Faith Ministries God's many blessings in the important work that you do.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here. And we also wish you blessings. You're doing important work, and I'm glad that you're there doing it.
Thank God. It's truly a joy. To all the Antiochian men out there, stay tuned for many more interviews and other videos coming your way. Remember that we have lots of video content available on our Amen YouTube channel, and we release new videos all the time. So please subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to visit our website as well at antiochianmen.org, and look for upcoming Antiochian Men events at the top of the homepage. If you haven't signed up for our Amen newsletter, please make sure that you do that on our website. You can find it on the bottom left-hand corner of our homepage. This is the best way to stay up to date on everything that we have going on as an organization. Thank you all for watching this video. And once again, thank you very much, Melinda, for your time today.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Prepare for me the ways of salvation, O Theotokos, for I have profaned my whole life with procrastination. But by thine intercession